Hello YouTube. Just wanted to catch everybody up with my activities recently, research and stuff like that. And I'm still trying to decide what to do with core weather, whether to shelve it or not, whether to even bother trying to bring people up to speed on where I was with it before I stopped working on it. And there's been a lot of changes in my life recently. 2 days ago, I kind of had a sort of one of those experiences. I think the last time anything like this happened, it was probably when I found Matt Segal's YouTube channel was the last time that something that influenced me as much as this is probably going to influence me happened. And the past couple days I've been really having to do some re-examining of myself and what my strategy is for presenting the things that I want to be able to present, and creating the things that I want to be able to create. And kind of looking at myself, I've been doing a lot of introspection, thinking of there's a couple things in particular that influenced this, and I'm going to link a couple things over here. You can take a look if you want. One of them, these are things that I can reference, that you can reference too. One of them is Dean Radin's video that he did for the Google Tech Talks. It's fairly long, but it's a very, very well put together presentation on psi phenomenon, and he talks about the taboo of psi phenomenon and how even though we have a lot of evidence, scientific research that kind of demonstrates probabilities of one in several hundreds of thousand, that this phenomenon is probably real, and even though most people believe in it and stuff like that, there's a lot of taboos. And I don't think that Dean really discussed the taboos that I would have brought into it. I mean, if you think about the nature of the kinds of things that this research indicates are possible, there's sort of a social convention that we have through the witch trials and the vanquishing of Carl Sagan's demon-haunted world. Almost agreed to say, okay, well, this might be, it might not be, but we're going to pretend it doesn't exist. And it's almost like a social convention that we deny the reality of the situation. And I think this is a terrible approach, and I think that from a scientific standpoint and from a cultural advancement standpoint, that it's really sort of tragic. I think there's a sort of crippling that is happening with our society. And you could even argue the taboo comes from a place where that is known about. One of the, there's the conspiracy theorists. Oh, well, there's people that know that psychic phenomena are real and they want to have control of everybody's mind. And so the easiest way to control people's minds is to pretend that kind of thing isn't possible. And I think there's an argument to be made for that as a potential source of the taboo, and I think that there's other arguments, there's other things that are interesting that Dean brings up in the video about the fact that there seems to be this pivot state that people believe that certain people are they're you're speaking from someplace else, a prophet or a genius. Dean brings up the fact that you don't know where genius comes from, and you don't really understand how that manifests and stuff like that. And it got me thinking about my own ways and how I create things, and what the source is of the things that I do. And it put me into a mode where I had to do a bunch of soul searching, and I've always done this meta-analysis of my own behavior. I've always tried to watch and understand how I do things and why I do things, And that's not always an easy, these questions aren't always easy questions to answer. And if you if you have a few hours, I could tell you my story. But the thing is, I guess to kind of encapsulate it, the place where I am with it is that I'm recognizing that I have a way of thinking that is very different from other people, and I've cultivated this and studied it throughout my life, and this is probably going to be turning into a big part of my work. And when I embraced that and applied that concept, the fact that I think of things differently, that I have ways of interacting with my mental sphere in a different way. When I took that and I said, okay, yeah, this is true. You need to work with this. You need to acknowledge this. You need to start working with this as a personal asset. I started applying it to some of the big problems I've been facing, and solutions started appearing, which is really interesting. I had to do, like I said, I had to do some soul searching, and I kind of followed up with some things that I'd kind of blocked off or blocked out, and one of the things that came up is I've been doing this research on the nature of the sun, which is tied into the core weather research, and I'm trying to figure out the details about the sunspot cycle, and how the energy from the sun relates to the energy on the Earth, and the energy formations on the Earth relate to the energy formations on the sun, and their pattern changes, as far as the weather and the earthquakes and the geomagnetic fluctuations and solar flares and stuff like that. And that process it was initiated a long time ago. And when I search back, the process of me analyzing this stuff was initiated a long time ago. And when I think about when it was and why, it just boggles my mind, because it seems like there's some type of there's always been some type of inductive force that induces me to think of in a certain way, or that moves me in a certain direction, or guides me in a certain way to understand things in a very, very different way. And so I started listening to that again, and I found a book is an answer for this thing about the nature of the sunspots, and it's by a Indian guru named Sri Aurobindo, and I'll put a link for the guru and the book that I found that contains this affirmation. It contains basically a validation of what I consider to be a sort of transcendental, or somehow innately you could call it genetic memory if you want to look for a scientific explanation for it. But it contains an understanding. It contains a validation of my interpretation of the Vedas, the ancient Indian pre-Indian books of knowledge, and I felt drawn to the Vedas, as the part of this process. And I went over the book that I have that that I was given, that was kind of thrust on me when I was at the International Tesla Symposium, the Indra, Girt by Maruts book by Jerry Zeigler. Jerry was chasing me around at the symposium, and he insisted that I have a copy of this book that he wrote that deals with the sunspot cycle, that deals with the energetic cycles that our sun goes through, and the nature of that in the Vedas. And so he had proposed an alternative interpretation, and I I was just blown away to find in this book that Sri Aurobindo had written. It's called The Secrets of the Vedas. The secret of the Vedas.